the computer. There we go. There.
Very good. Yeah, I see it now. I guess I maybe try to back up a little bit, just so it's in the record. So welcome, and definitely trying to look through all the photographs. The first time seeing them, my initial reaction, I was trying to think of what's the photographer trying to say? What are they trying to say visually and communicate through the lens-based medium? I was mentioning a moment ago that it doesn't matter what type of gear you have, it's what you do with it, what you try to record with it, what you try to say through that medium that you're using. And you should certainly look at all the technical ideas. I don't want people to ever get so caught up into like, oh, what shutter speed, what aperture. You have to know how to use those things to make it work, of course. But once you get over that, the learning process is established, then you can really start to communicate visually through the medium of photography. And that was one of the things I tried to look at, is what is in the selection process, what the photographer is trying to say to their audience, and audience being me at first, but then everybody else after the work is out there. A photograph should make the viewer momentarily forget about reality. You take you somewhere else, put you in a different mindset, look at the world in a slightly different manner, show us something that we maybe never seen or experienced before, take us out of the present, maybe conjure up memories of our past, and trigger some of those sort of core memories for us, but also take us on a journey and make us think, make us wonder, give us some curiosity about the world around us. It's one of the best things that you could do in a photograph, is to give your viewer different sort of experience, and not just oh, I've seen that before, or oh, I can understand that, and I know what that's all about. Those are great images, but when you can really get into showing the world through your own point of view, that's when it becomes pretty exciting. And that was one of the things I tried to look for as we were going through some of the images. I really enjoyed the selection process. I went through it a couple of times. I think I came in a little short at first and then went back through it. So I was happy to kind of revisit some ideas and enjoyed every bit of it. A lot of creativity and a lot of challenge and a lot of chances to take with this as well. Now, what I thought would be appropriate, and I'm happy to do anything, put questions in the chat and answer them as we go along. Feel free to speak up. I certainly don't mind. Keep working on that sort of thing. But what I was going to do is just try to show the images that I guess everybody's maybe seen, but speak about them just a little bit and kind of the initial reaction that I have. And then maybe we can follow up with any other questions when this is when it comes to an end, and then go from there and talk about anything else. If I go ahead and try to, I tried this ahead of time. Let's see, I close that message out. And then if we go back to Zoom, let's see, Carl, are you still the host? Or do I
believe so.
All right. Do I have that ability to share?
Hang on. Wait a minute. It should say multiple participants, so you should be able to share.
All right, let's try that. Be able to hit share screen and it should work. Yeah. I'm not seeing the opportunity to be able to do that.
Wait a minute. Try something else here.
It's another one of those, you have to hover at the bottom of the screen and then a menu will pop up, or it should. I mean, and then in the middle it says share screen.
Okay.
And it's green for me, so I'm assuming you'd be able to share as well.
Yeah, yes, very good. I've got that point, but not seeing it doing it.
Oh.
Yes, I didn't make that super clear. Got it where it says to share screen, but
did it have a pop-up window that says, which screen do you want to share?
yes, ma'am.
Okay.
But then it pulls up an option that just goes right into a cancel mode. Let's try this maybe. If I change a security preference. I guess maybe I should let the cat out of the bag. I am in my office on a school computer, so there's something there, but let me change that. See if that might help. Is that sharing?
Yes.
Oh, very good. All right. Looking back in there, that should be good. So I pulled up, you have to forgive my cluttery background, but I just pulled up in preview all of the images that were there, and they should be in numerical order. Yes, it looks good. We can go from there. Now, I'm going to do my best with everybody's names. And forgive me if I mispronounce or do something super creative in that sort of realm. Nothing personal, but just trying to get to know people, and first time seeing a lot of the names. Keith Arabach with this image titled Charlie Chaplin, and always a fan of anybody looking like stopping time and sort of filling up a frame, doing different compositional things, but also street photography. And looking at the image, converted down to grayscale is always kind of a fun thing. And I don't know where the image is made. It might be somewhere up in Nashville. I don't get out much, I guess. But when I kind of saw this, and that the old sort of traditional sort of thing, a gesture of hello, and a romantic sort of thing from the past meeting the, let's say, somewhat recent present, certainly made me sort of stop and think a little bit. Being surrounded with these icons of the cinema was also kind of fun to see, with the Humphrey Bogart and Marilyn Monroe and the Casablanca poster and everything. Some of the simplest shapes that are formed in the image, or kind of the compositional things like the movie posters that are painted on the wall, that echo the human form with the chaplain's leg, but then that great triangle between the female figure's legs and the high-heeled boots that she's wearing. It was kind of fun to look through the frame and see where the eye sort of follows, and you see the hair sort of flowing. And this kind of great temporal moment of, these are stars that filled the screen at one time, and now they're standing still in a permanent sort of state. And just like the street photography image, you get this figure that's kind of standing still as well. And, even though the image has got a little level of grain to it, I think that adds to it. It gives it a texture, it gives it a feeling, it gives it kind of a out of time and place. It can exist almost anywhere kind of feel. Nothing at all problematic about a grainy image. Absolutely adore it. And I'll just kind of go down through some of these. Hopefully there's not too much of a lag. Also by Keith Arabach, the title of this one, My Memory Has Many Hiding Places. And the first thing looking at, you can see this like stairway going up, but then you're also down at the same time. And it made me think of a personal kind of quiet look back into previous struggles and challenges. You can always photograph into reflections, and there's all these kind of cliches like the reflections and the windows into your soul. But it made me think of like challenges that everybody faces, and like the uphill struggle that's around, and how you can learn from some of those things. But uphill is not forever, and it's often in your past, it's behind you. And this became to me kind of an inspirational image about memory. There's a light switch that's turned off, so there's some kind of cliche sort of things that happen there. Might sound a little bit this is simple, but with the light switch turned off, there still is a lot of light in the image. I just thought that turned out to be a compelling sort of thing. It makes me think, are you coming or you're going? Which way are we facing in life, and how do you keep that sort of direction looking forward? Also with Keith's work, this one, the framing, I try to give the theme of trying new things, trying new chances. And, I didn't know that all three of these were his, but at the same time, when I saw this, I was just like, wow, somebody may be trying something new, a different composition, a different sort of framing device, cropping it in a different way. This almost like a windshield wiper kind of arch that turned out to be this cool little bridge sort of shape. And first thing that caught my eye was all the tree poles, or the kind of trunks to the trees, and the poles in the background. And there's some delicate composition elements happening, with everything having a place and existing in its place. But then obviously there's a horse kind of grazing on the grass. And so this sort of wonderful framing of these kind of things. And I felt it to be this arch, almost like a support arch of some kind. You know, because the tree has the canopy, and this kind of makes the shape of the canopy. The horse kind of does a similar thing as well. And it kind of goes back to that thought of everything in its own sort of place. Everything has a place to live and to exist, and everything hopefully protected in life. The thick black fields within the framing also, you know, kind of caught my eye. And there was a couple of these, so you knew it was from the same person. But this one out of the batch really stood out to me. Made it pretty sort of exciting to see. There is a Rick Borchet called Path Up. And, you know, at first I wasn't quite sure what I was looking at, you know, and that's a great sort of thing because the abstraction of photography, it keeps you curious. You know, I want to know more. I want to find out more. But then you start to make heads and tails of it and you realize you're kind of in a stairwell. I was thinking it was like the inside of like a garage or a barn or something like this, with the light coming through the sort of rafters, but the light on the banister. And it kind of goes back to like the one with the staircase that we saw earlier, where everything, you know, has a sort of path going up. And to kind of see this echoing sort of shape. There's great form, great pattern, and great sort of detail, and a lot of darkness. But within darkness, you can find light, you know. I was kind of looking at these kind of analogies or these kind of sayings that you could kind of come up with throughout some of the work. And so just the pattern and the repetition and the shape and the form, just the simple design that turned out to be extremely complex is what sort of drew me to this image. Sort of lovely kind of deep tones and everything to kind of see. It's always fun when you start looking from one frame to the next, you know, and when you're in the gallery setting, you might move around, you go to the left, you go to the right, you talk to somebody. But here, when you get to see them, it's cool when you start seeing connections between them. And so this image by Diane Burgett called Play Me a Song, you know, kind of echoes that same thing with these lines that sort of form these great sort of angles throughout. And, you know, I can't play a musical instrument. I used to play the tuba, but at the same time, I appreciate, you know, all these kind of things. So all of the craftsmanship and the discipline that goes into, you know, playing an instrument like this, like, you know, at the piano and singing a song, it was neat to see all of these slits or the lines that are created throughout this process and how there's so much structure and repetition, pattern, and form within all the different materials that are there. You know, you think about a lot of musical instruments and you get kind of the same sort of things, you know, happening. And it all comes into harmony, all sort of, you know, creates music. But there was some great sort of shallow depth of field within that in the microphone and also with the keys of the piano. And, you know, those are the kind of things that sort of were able to kind of capture some of my attention for this. I love the asymmetry, you know, where it's off-center. And there's almost like a space for the human element to exist, a hand and a face. And so it kind of puts you into that position to be able to be the performer as well. A hopeful image, but also a very quiet image because there is nobody in the frame. But, you know, it's certainly a fun one to see. I was drawn to this one, you know, how simple it is, but also how complex it can be. And the first thing I thought of, you know, this is Sharon Christopher. I think it's Sharon, maybe Christopher Sharon. If it is, please forgive me. But Orbit was the title of it. And first thing I thought of, besides childhood and sort of playing with toys and how important toys are, you know, when you're in your youth and as an adulthood, is aspirations of space. I couldn't help but to think of like space travel, you know, and, you know, maybe it's the black field, the sort of red planet sort of thing and the stars, but just as simple of the jacks and how incredibly simple it is, but also how much it can make you think. I mean, maybe it's just me, I'm a big fan of space and everything. And there's great wonder to be had no matter, you know, who you are, I hope. You have curiosity about what's out there and traveling and everything. And maybe there's something that we can understand. Maybe there's something we can't understand. And an image like this certainly could be the step towards that, trying to bring us into these kind of things. And it's always fun when you use something that's so simple, you know, just a simple non-electric toy, just a rubber ball and 4 jacks to play with that you could use anywhere, but how you can maybe use that to also reference something else in life. Also by Sharon Christopher or Christopher Sharon, the movable feast. And, of course, looking at the two images together, knowing that they're by the same person, same photographer, you see kind of an echoing line, the shape of the jacks and the sort of the ball in the center, follow the leading line of these barriers where the gentlemen are having their afternoon lunch and things. And, it's a construction crew of some kind of, who knows where, and everything is maybe secondary to this. But I was glad to see a different perspective, looking down. And maybe think of the work of Humboldt, looking down from the garages and the sort of street scenes and things. And you see the old familiar thing, a lunch break. And they're not sitting down, they're standing up anywhere you can. The great sort of framing of like a cigarette butts floating in water next to styrofoam dishes full of food. I love that there's an apple in one of the hard hats, so it's like use anything that you have. And there's also maybe a great separation between the crew as well. I mean, these two guys on the upper right, they're wearing the same style of I don't know, clothing, let's say, the blue hat. So they're together with the fluorescent and the orange stripe. But then the gentleman that's in the bottom, kind of middle, with the pencil in his hard hat, looking at his phone, is completely isolated from the other two. Like they're there for the same reason, but they're not at all sort of there together. So I thought that was a neat kind of sort of discovery when you really start to look through the image and have some fun with it. So happy to see that. Plus, just seeing the color and everything and the anonymousness of the workers. You never know who makes all the things around us, who fixes the roads, who does all the buildings for us. So it kind of goes back into those kind of things. I saw this one, and the first thing I noticed, the target of the Ferris wheel and everything. How can you, not help but see that right away? But then delighted to see this little boy running across this open field, chasing after a ball. And if I'm not mistaken, this is in Northern Ireland. The panoramic wheel, I think. A big fan of Ferris wheels. Some background noise, but I couldn't help but to think this little boy is just thinking of the idea of, I have this huge attraction all to myself, and I feel like I could ride it. I can feel like I'm flying while riding on it. But right now, I'm going to chase this ball. So he's making his own fun, and it's neat to see that the circle ball echoes the shape of the Ferris wheel as well. Round sort of pieces that you might surround yourself on. The panoramic wheel was kind of a cool sort of thing, and it doesn't look like there's anybody riding on it. So there is a curiosity about that. It's a beautiful day. You see one person, like a worker up there, but nobody riding on the panoramic wheel. It sounds like a fun thing to be on. And it just made me think of enjoying the simple things in life, taking it easy and just enjoying what you have to be able to see the world around you.
We're getting a lot of background noise.
Ken, please mute your mic.
Thank you.
Thank you to whoever said that. This was Joe Fields. The one before that was called Bounce, and then this one's also Joe Fields. Bubbles at the Standing Stones, and this was one of the ones that I chose for the best of show selection. One, it was taken by the cropping, so I appreciated that. Kind of trying something different a little bit. And it was neat to see that this was by the same person, same photographer. And, you have, once again, there's a little boy, the future or the youth of, let's just assume the family, chasing after a ball. But in this case, not a rubber ball, a bubble that's kind of floating around. And, this like rock formation that I'm not quite sure where it is, but certainly a place where people can go. And somebody out there releasing the bubbles that plays nicely from the very temporal sort of things that the bubbles are flying in the air versus all the jagged edges of the rocks that are going to be there long after we're all passed on. Was a wonderful sort of contrast to see. And so just like the different generations of the family, there's different generations of the things to look at in the photograph. And it's a time-based image. You've got a lot of things happening. Some of it goes by very, very quickly, and some of it takes a long amount of time. And that was one of the reasons why I chose this image for the show and also for the best of show. I could kind of circle back about some of the technical things, but I was thrilled to kind of see how it was composed and how the eye moves through the frame. So kudos to Joe Fields for doing that. Very fun image to see.
Just for fun
Yeah.
facts, this is Castle Rig Standing Stones in the Lakes District, UK.
Oh, okay. Excellent. Excellent.
And you did identify Northern Ireland absolutely appropriately on the other one.
Oh, good. Yeah.
I'm very impressed.
Well, a hobby of mine is amusement parks. So,
Interesting.
and these kind of things. So when I saw the panoramic wheel, I was like, I think I know where that is.
Port Stewart.
Okay, cool. Very good. Well, cool. Thank you for that. It's always good to see a location. I don't want to derail this, but looking at the sky of the image, did you add some texture to the sky? Like, did you do anything? in
Yes,
post-
it was kind of blah that day. So I thought, well, I like textures, so I did that.
Cool. Okay. I was looking at that. I was wondering, is that something going on with the camera or something, purpose? But great to know that it was something, added after the fact. Wonderful to see. I really dig the image. A lot of fun and can relate to it in many different ways. Kudos.
I had wanted to go there and take these gorgeous, stone images with nobody, there. And then there were all these people. And then it ended up being so much fun, to have the people in the pictures. So anyway.
Yes. It gives it a scale. It gives it some life. You got to do the ones where it's, what's in your heart, what you sort of follow, what you see in your mind. But at the same time, you don't want to let me just wait 40 minutes for everybody to leave. Embrace those kind of moments. That's cool to know. That's good to know. Foolish of me, I assumed that it was maybe family and friends and things, that kind of thing. But if it's just random people are out and about, even better. Fun to see. And not a single one of them is paying you a bit of attention, except for the guy in the middle. He's photographing you while you're photographing him. Oh, fun. This one also with the composition, kind of in the cropping. Gerald Figal Convo. And you can kind of see that right away with the two gentlemen, sort of talking. I was proud of, seeing the submission of trying something new. I don't know, it could be something they've done for a long time with the framing like this. But I thought maybe this is something trying out a little bit different. You can see how it's been cropped in from the digital camera sensor up close. First thing I thought of, besides, conversations and things, but a frame within a frame, and really trying to look through an image and trying to set up a composition that becomes visually exciting, as well as this kind of storytelling. Because you have two people talking, we don't know what about, and nobody else will know what about. Only they do. And the conversation that they have begins to fade away immediately. Just like the waves in the water that are going out in the background. You can see some of the hand gestures. It's fun seeing the person sitting on the rock and everything in the foot. But it was kind of neat to see this moment of friendly conversation happening amongst all of this sort of stonework and all the rock that's been there for so long, and versus how quickly we are, here on the earth, and how quickly our conversations do seem to go away. Words are a very, very important thing, and what you say to each other and what you can share and pass on to one another is a very, very meaningful thing. And you should certainly embrace it. So that should go down. Let's see. Maybe you have to do it that way. Okay, I can do that. With also with Gerald Figal's work, the image of global and the panoramic framing yet again. Kind of seeing that the curve of the image that you see starts to make a reference of the curve of the Earth, and we know that it's not like a super high up atmosphere image, but somehow curving the image this way gives you that distortion. And so you kind of start to see, maybe in a way, how delicate things are, and how large the world is as we know it, but also how small. Everything's sort of together, and we're all in this together, sort of thing. And once again, I don't quite know where this is. It looks like someplace outside of the United States, but I could be totally wrong. And it's fun to kind of see those kind of moments where we have just this space to exist, and in a way, you better take care of it. I was kind of happy to see that these were by the same person, because the two images complement each other very well. You have the kind of weight on one side of the image, and then a lot of negative space on the other, and the eye is able to travel through that frame. And so if they ever get printed or sort of put together, they make a lovely diptych, you know, 2 images together and everything, to be able to show that work off. It certainly worth kind of seeing, and it's kind of thrilled to see that style in the batch of images. All right, I'm going to try this one. David Foster. My French is very, very small, but pas du da, a French step for two, a certain type of dance was the title. I recognize that from looking at the title of the work, but the dance of two performers. And I thought that was just lovely. Great to see like the shallow depth of field. Great to see, you know, these kind of things that put all of the information where you can see it, just on isolates the subject matter. So I appreciated the photographer's delicate approach to really kind of show this stuff off. And it's great to kind of just have the background blur out, so it's visually strong. You just show what you intend to show. There's no other sort of elements creeping in. But then you have a great reference of two dancers in a flower, and it's not the first time there's ever been done. It's not going to ever be it won't be the last time it's ever been done either. But certainly a lovely sort of exchange that begins to take place. You know, I was kind of thrilled to see that with the. Let me get the mouse off of it. With the awareness of the moment together and the two flowers right after it was a bit of a rainstorm. So I thought that one turned out very well. I also kind of glad to see the photographer got down to flower point of view. I know that sounds kind of weird, but you get that perspective. We're not looking down onto things, you're looking into the subject matter. And the camera that can be moved around in that way certainly helps us out and tells us that kind of story and shows us the seeing that. I'd love to see you know, more of those kind of things you know, from anybody. Next one of the series was Mike Gannon with the tilted chairs, and you know, this was kind of fun. I didn't know what I was looking at, and so your imagination runs wild. I've never seen chairs like that before, and you know, until you look at the title of it, it's just like, oh wow, okay, you know, neato. And you know, the layers and the depth, you know, I was thinking it was like some like spindles for yarn. I used to work in textiles, so I had to kind of come up with my own sort of answer for it. But there was great harmony in the colors and the chairs resting on each other. What kind of really caught some of my attention, you know, the pattern, the shape, and the form, of course. But then when you start thinking about a chair needing a chair to exist, you know, also made me think, you know, there's some interesting storytelling that starts to happen with that. These containers and bowls, I'm not quite sure how you would sit in these, but at the same time, looks like it'd be a lot of fun, you know. And we got a fun sort of exchange. So neat to see the chair sitting within the chairs. With a fun sort of pattern, fun sort of shape. The image itself kind of flows nicely, and it's got that repetition and form, so it pulls the eye in, pulls the viewer in very well. And a lot of fun to see. It kind of keeps curiosity, you know, up and wild. Leslie Gill had this one called Broken Arch. And, you know, once again, kind of you start seeing similarities in some of the work, but another frame within the frame. It's almost like we're looking through these kind of moments, and a fun compositional element to include. With the term broken arch, you're going to see the crack right in the middle. And the first thing you think of is nothing lasts forever, you know, and you think, you know, how long it took for these things to form. It's a great sort of thing to kind of see, but eventually it's going to go away. You have all sorts of nuts that are out there that are changing the landscape, you know, building rock formations and doing these sculptural things maybe for social media sort of things. But just one day, you know, if it gets enough weather to it or enough time, with the crack in the arch or the broken arch, we might lose what we have. So in a way, you know, I can appreciate all of like the color balance, you know, the late afternoon light. We get that wonderful orange against the blue. But in a way, a much deeper sort of storytelling. Appreciate what you have. Make sure you embrace, you know, the things that we have, because it could be gone tomorrow. And you think of something like this would outstand the hands of time, and it certainly might outlive all of us, but in a way, it may not. And that's one of those kind of things that hopefully makes you think about when you're looking at a photograph. I've never been out west. I assume this is in the western part of the United States, but I could be totally wrong. Yeah, but it's kind of neat to see those kind of things, and I appreciate that it's there. You can only imagine like the first travel out west and trying to see all these formations. and you try to describe it to somebody, nobody believe you. But then you bring a camera with you, a huge glass plate camera, to document it, and that's when it really starts to show some of this stuff off. So I appreciate seeing that from Leslie Gill. With stay over there. With Beth Rose going, there was a sequence of images, almost like a series, and I didn't quite pick up on that. Looking at the submissions and then going through it, saw they were all by the same person, and it was like, oh, look at that. So that made a lot more sense. So I was kind of thrilled to see they were all by the same person, and these were have a wonderfully straightforward style to them. Just almost like a catalog, of some of the materials. This one's a cantaloupe, just like the rind of a cantaloupe. But they also have a tone of abstraction in a kind of studio, and so you're left to your own devices to come up with some of your own ideas. And I thought it kind of best something like finding life and beauty within the commonplace. The stuff that you might throw away, put in the compost pile, cantaloupe peel. And you can't help but to think of things like the repetition of life and death, because cantaloupe we require, or depend on it for food and everything, and then eventually we compost it, comes back around. And it was great to see this sort of curvature and everything. It makes that same sort of reference of a container, which you'll see again here in a moment with some of her other work. The one with the flowers, she called it dancer, the delicate flower and the implication of movement. And you start to see all these sort of wispy sort of pieces like couldn't move around, like the dandelion sort of kind of shape, I believe. And that's already been blown. It's like a wish has been made. But the dancer that's within the image, you start to see in an abstract way. And of course, flowers and dance have always been sort of connected. We've already seen an image similar to that. So it's glad to see some similarities starting to form. It's fun to see this kind of solid black background with the light subject matter as well. And so there's almost this life coming out of the darkness. I think this one also turned out extremely well. Very abstract and almost looks like it's completely out of focus, but it's not. There's a little sliver of sharp focus to give the eye something to rest upon. But Beth had titled this one Elephant Ear. And elephants, incredible animal. The old saying that an elephant never forgets, right? And there's this wonderful little cradle that's kind of formed in the leaf of the elephant here, almost like a bowl or a storage container, very similar to what you saw in that cantaloupe one. And it's kind of neat when you start to see similarities in somebody's work like this. And the elephant never forgetting, you always have a container to hold sort of your thoughts, or a way to kind of work in these sort of things. And then her fourth one in this series, this one was called Eternity. And I remember seeing this one, and wouldn't have guessed it was by the same person, because it's a completely different style, but very similar at the same time. And a very delicate sort of matter. Almost looks like either a slice of paper, like cut off of a trimmer, or maybe like a fern or a leaf kind of type thing, a blade of grass. And it just made me think of how delicate life can be. How the smallest thing can have the biggest impact on some of us. And don't ever, forget about some of the small things in life, because sometimes they can be the most important. Once again, you see that same curve. And so, she's kind of thinking in that same sort of direction of moving the material around and trying to set up a composition in that sort of way. So wonderful series of minimalism that does speak very, very loudly and fills the frame up nicely. Let's see if we keep going down. There we go. Susan Harrell with their sunflower bouquet was also caught my eye. The sunflower, a great plant. It's got a lot of references and things. The meanings of like loyalty and adoration, a deep love, are great references to associate with the sunflower. So the world needs now is a lot more, love inside of it. But the thing that always I think of with a sunflower are the golden proportions, like the Fibonacci sequence and plants and everything. Try to bring that into some of the classes and stuff. And it's fun to kind of see those kind of moments. I also appreciated her composition, the triangle that's kind of formed, even though the depth of field falls shallow, but the triangle arrangement, which is a strong arrangement, one of the strongest shapes, but it's off-centered. And so it suggests room to grow. And if you look at the image, you see like the negative space off to the side and the contrasting of the colors, the cool versus the warm or the yellow. So it really helped bring the image together. You can have a straightforward image of a flower and it takes on a different feel, but something off to the side where you give us just enough information can speak a completely different sort of volume. You know, is drawn into that and looking around it. If I remember correctly, sunflowers are many different small flowers. And so it's kind of neat to think of sunflower fields and just an arrangement maybe on display somewhere. But a lovely image, a lot of fun to see. I kept looking back at this one, Emily Helms, River Shadows. And you know, you can only assume like a bolt or maybe something went by, passed and made the disturbance in the water, the ripple effect. And you know, you can think of a cool, calm sort of body of water, and you see a mirror-like reflection. But life gets much more exciting when there's a lot of distortions and a lot of sort of elements that come into play. I can't quite tell because it's small, but you guys like see you're almost right in the middle of the bridge support. There looks like a window, and there might be a person hanging out of the window, maybe a worker of some kind. There's a doorway just to the side of it. I'll use the mouse, like right here, right? It looks like there's a person, right? And it's minuscule in the image. It's small, but at the same time, it caught my attention. And seeing the waves in the water made me think of sound waves, like conversation. And even though you can be one small person, you can make a tremendous effect, you know. And you know, the ability to kind of have the sound waves in like the waves in the water showed that you can have the support of strength and stability amongst all sorts of chaos as well. You know, the waves could also be a reference of chaos and things you can't control, all sorts of moving elements. So there was a lot going on for me in this image. I thought it was a lot of fun to kind of see and look at. I kept going back to it and kept studying and everything, but a lot of fun to see. And the ripple effect is a lot of fun. So, you know, fantastic, you know, for Emily to kind of find something like this. Distortions and the ripple effects, they're always kind of fun. If you can find something that contrasts in a photograph, you know, something that's solid and firm versus something that's always moving, sight long exposure could, you know, embrace these kind of moments. I think that's when you can really hook your viewer. And these are the kind of things that certainly can add some fun to this kind of stuff. And then also to go into that, Pat Hollander, the title of it, Flying By. I also picked this one for best of show selection. Trying not to be biased, but a big fan of railroads as well. You know, trains, railroads, kind of stuff. And so that's one of the reasons, but not the main reason. You know, looking at the image, you know, you see the parked train engine, but then you see this blur, this orange and blue blur going by of a train sort of in motion. You can kind of see through it in some way. But what made me really sort of excited about the image is that you're seeing this parked train next to the bridge, and the bridge has on it a rendering of a steam engine. All right, so you see the past as well as the present within the same frame. And the past is forever, you know, is built into the bridge, you know, the shape of it and everything, even in its simple sort of gesture, still is really, really strong and really tall. And, you know, you think about, you know, steam locomotive used to be the only way to travel, you know, by rail. And then when the diesel locomotive came out, it changed a lot of things and made it a lot faster, but didn't make it nearly as, I guess, romantic and things. And so it kind of, to me, spoke about the idea of how there's always evolution and progress in our technology. It's always going to change, continue to change. It made me think of the Henri Letigue image, and some of you may know this one. It's called Afternoon Walk from about 1911. It's a lady dressed in furs, and she's got two dogs with her. But what really sort of kind of connects it for me is that on the left-hand side of the frame, and we read, you know, left to right, an automobile is entering the frame. But then on the right-hand side of the frame, you see a kind of horse and buggy exiting the frame. And the figure's right in the middle, but it's a kind of a neat image to think about how the automobile being introduced and how it changed the world. And this kind of has echoing sort of traits of that for me. So I was kind of thrilled to see that kind of stuff happen and have my memory jarred through the history of photography to see those kind of things happen as well. Kudos to, you know, to Pat for having an image like this. Transportation and sort of the things that we depend upon are super important. And just like trucking industry and everything, all the stuff that gets shipped overseas, all the stuff that gets shipped around the country, and locomotive traffic is equally important. So it's fun to kind of see those things and render that. It turned out to be an exciting image. Really happy for it to have this kind of things. If you can keep moving down, I'm gonna have to scroll through a few of it. If I don't know if Ken is here. I know he had asked to be present during the conversation, but I can certainly circle back as well. But Ken Langley's image of museum, this would with its negative space and minimalism certainly caught my attention. And just like we saw before with people in the image, it gives it a sense of scale. You wouldn't really know what you're looking at if you didn't see the person in the frame. So having those kind of references are very, very important. But at the same time, you have this wide open space, and you see the railing, you see this kind of where the people could be, and you know that something could potentially come in that sort of area. And so it made me think about the possibilities of things to come in all of our lives. Let alone with the person is sort of there in the frame, but there's always great opportunity ahead. And if you ever work in a museum setting, or if you have a chance to see that, or in between of a museum, it's great to see when work is down off the walls, and then also when the walls are activated. And so it kind of made me think of a lot of experience that I had in the past with that as well, and think, what's the next one? What's the next thing that'll be there on display? So a fun image. I love the quietness of it, and also the sort of subtle tonality for it as well. And then Ken also had this image, and I might mess this up, and forgive me if I thought Songthew is the title. And obviously a small and delicate kind of moment of childhood. A child sort of resting in somebody's arms. Don't know who it is, if it's a mom or a dad or a grandparent sort of thing, parental figure. It's an important moment for the young, but also a very, very important moment for the adult that's in the image. And the comfort of being in somebody's arms, the comfort of being embraced, certainly made me think about my own family and these kind of things. So I couldn't help but to kind of relate to this one. I don't know if you guys can pick up on it, but there's a level of noise in the image, from the digital camera, and that's part of it. Digital cameras are going to give you noise, and my guess is that it's because of the low light, that it was photographed on. And this is not a problem. It actually, to me, kind of gave it a wonderful texture, because it takes light to record an image and to make it sort of happen, at least in the ways that we're working here. And given that the light was low, it required a longer exposure and everything, and so it took time to build that exposure in, and the ISO may have been cranked up a little bit, so that extra texture added to it for me. It made me think about how much it takes to build a family, how much it takes to sort of embrace and to sort of keep it up and going, and to get it to actually work. And at the same time, an image like this, you start to look at it, these are the moments that can fade away very quickly. You can look at it in reverse, and it's not going to take long for whoever the young man is or the child to be able to grow up. And those textures that you see with the digital sort of capture certainly could become a reference to the image, and the memory of that begins to fade away. And I loved how quiet it was, and how sort of intimate and personal it was, but also the ability to kind of share those kind of things. So thank you to Ken for submitting the images, and for jarring my own sort of memory, and hopefully memories of others when you were kids and things, and also being held by parents and family members. Al Levinson, the title of this one was North Nashville. And you can't help but to see some iconic sort of things. The Black Christ Matters shirt, this painting that's up on the wall. The George Floyd sort of sticker that's attached to the megaphone. And then, also, just always kind of made me think of, what we've been through in the world, and trying to bring awareness to one another, and how loud of a voice we might actually need. It doesn't look like a protest, it looks like maybe some of an awareness, or trying to bring people together. And, at first I was kind of looking at it, I appreciated the angle of the perspective and this kind of, sort of pulling upward sort of feel. But then it's subtle, but at the same time, I was thrilled to see all the chairs in the lower corner, because it made me think about trying to reach the masses. And we do that very well these days with social media, but we live in a very, politicized climate. And social media gives people a chance to speak their mind, be it good and bad. And you have to make your own sort of choices for this kind of stuff. And it's great when you have somebody that's there and you're there for one reason, just to listen to the person. He's got his notepad with him, all sorts of things to be able to kind of speak about and to try to bring awareness to that he believes in, rightfully so. You're entitled to those kind of moments. I guess in a way, it made me think of trying to be aware of each other and also be aware of what each other's trying to say and our backgrounds and beliefs and our life experiences and kind of looking at those things. It's kind of interesting to think of, we've kind of moved away from it now, but some iconic things can begin to date an image. And, 100 years from now, when you look back at photographs, you can kind of know when some of these images were made. You see these iconic things, you see people in masks, you see like some of the posters or the iconic sort of sayings, and it gives it a time frame without having to look up the data. So if you know your history, you can kind of see those sort of things. And this one can start to go down, and many others, very similar to it, but this one has its own potential of being sort of part of the history of photography for some of these sort of things. Let's see, go down to, here we go. Oh, too far. There it is. Now, Sanada Mali, I don't know if you're here or not, but I saw this one, and you can't help but to see the color right away. Those red shoes, the ballet shoes and everything, with that blue fabric, and then the sort of yellow hair, flowing and very temporal and very, very quick in nature. And I love like that it's got a statue in the background. Somebody that's permanently there for the ages, already tarnished and green and everything. And there's this great play off of the figure sort of in motion. And then this wonderful, like the title of it's higher. It's like lifting the feet higher, lifting the hands higher, lifting the red shoe is high, and the red is the color of passion and love. So bringing and elevating those kind of moments together. If it was white or pink or something like this, it might have a completely different feeling to me. Color is a very, very important thing, especially in subtleties like this. It's also kind of fun to see, and it's maybe eclipsed by our window here, but there's this gentleman, or it looks like a person, kind of walking in the background, like walking into the building. This poor guy has no idea that what's going on right behind him. So it's kind of fun when you look into the backgrounds and things, they kind of see those moments. And so it's a very public moment, but also in a way very private. Because we're the only ones that get a chance to see the person, seeing that people are walking right past those kind of moments. At the same time, we have this one that was titled Serene, the kind of waterfall going through. And, also by Senada Mali, and certainly what I thought maybe could have been a new approach for them to try through photography, the long exposure, trying to create, long sort of temporal things of water flowing. And it's always fun to see the world rendered in this sort of manner, with the long exposure setting. The flow of water, to me, echoes that blue dress that we just saw, from the figures sort of dancing. And it's neat to see how the rock formation and everything begins to sort of create that sort of same shape or a similar shape, but in a completely different location. A little bit different, a little bit deeper, I guess. You have to think about how patient water is and how long it takes to create and sort of chisel out the landscape around us. The formation of the waterfalls, the formation over time and everything, certainly is longer than any of us have been around. And some of the simplest of things, just moving water can make some of the deepest impacts. And similar to the patience of the dancer and all the time it took to be able to stand on her toes like this and perform some of the moves that they do. Always a deep appreciation for any of the arts, and dance is certainly one of them. So great to kind of see those kind of two things happening, and a lot of fun to kind of see and follow with the eye throughout the water formation, and always fun to try. If if you guys never tried, doing something like that, like a long exposure, certainly go for it. You don't have to go very far to find something like this to make it work. This is Kimberly Manson, and the title of it is Notice. And you can see the sort of piece of paper that's taped to the bus stop or the inside the windows that are there. I also picked this one as the third best of show selection. And I thought this one worked out particularly well with that notice sign, and you see the old familiar suggestion of wear a mask. And the world was a very different place and never be the same again. But at the same time, a lot of people took it seriously, and a lot of people didn't. And we have to kind of move on and make our own choices for our own self. And Kimberly's composition of this, let's just say older gentleman, we don't exactly know, kind of make the assumption of that, is that that person's being masked as well by the support pole, which turned out to be very fun, but also kind of sad sort of way, because wearing masks, everybody became a bit anonymous. And sometimes also the people in our lives, on purpose, we make them anonymous. Sometimes we don't sort of include them, or for whatever reasons and things. And so I thought this one hit on many different levels for us. And it was great to kind of see that kind of stuff. This is another one of those images that if you really look at it, you might know approximately when it was made, 100 years from now, 50 years from now. You can see that some of the masks and things are there. And the anonymous sort of style of it is what really caught my attention. A little bit to the left, a little bit to the right. It would be a very, very different image. So kudos to her for something like this. A lot of fun to see, but at the same time, a little too real, if that makes any sort of sense. Emily's summer rain image. This is a diptych, two images together. And always exciting to see images paired together. It's great to see the single images, but when you purposely put two things together, this is how it's submitted, is always kind of fun. And you look at it and you start seeing this sort of strange, bizarre sort of green colors with this magenta, like the filtering of the light and everything. And the title of it being Summer Rain made me kind of immediately feel this hot, muggy, slightly humid sort of feeling, which is a great thing to have on a cold January day sort of thing. I love that the images are both at angles, and they're both going in the same direction. You see the umbrella, but then you also see like the parked car on the road, and the water always kind of rolling downhill. So as you get up higher and everything, but that kind of feeling of being in another world with the water coming down on you and the different colors and the different feeling that can begin to create was certainly a lot of fun to kind of see, and change it up. Kind of unique to the batch of images that were around within the submissions for the show. I hope people try more of the diptych style work. It's kind of funny, in our one of my classes today, we showed the work of David Hiller that does a variety of multiple panel pieces. So certainly look them up if you're not familiar. But the storytelling to those multiple frames, and you start to see that happen here. It's kind of like let me get to the car and let me get to the outside as well. I took this one on, Chuck Ritchie, excuse me, Avery Plantation Oak. And, trees are an incredible thing. Without trees, we wouldn't be around, sort of thing. And it's fascinating, how deep they grow, they can grow, the root patterns, how they echo, on the top, where basically the trunk is like right at the middle of the tree. And, there's great shadows that are formed in the image. And trees can provide all sorts of shadow and sun protection for us. They give us a canopy to sort of exist underneath and to be comfortable with. But I guess I kept going back to this idea of like the tree of life and the tree of knowledge, maybe even a family tree, all the kind of cliche sayings that are around with that, but how important that can be. And, I love to see like the lower branch kind of lower to the ground, these veins kind of coming out of the earth, try to give us a little bit of extra life and also a little bit of protection as well. Certainly a fun image to look at and see. Bringing it down to grayscale adds a lot more to it, and the visual texture that's there. So a fun image from Chuck Ritchie. Thank you for that. Excuse me. Susan Rauch, title image of Blue Angel. And, once again, I was kind of taken, like, I'm not sure what I'm looking at here. And I was hoping this was a new idea, like a new sort of theme or something, a new experience. But I was drawn to the repetition, the pattern, and the form, within the image. And you start to kind of try to make out, like, what is it? What am I looking at here? And that's kind of secondary. You can let it sort of speak to you like that. But at the same time, you can't help but let your curiosity run. The first thing I thought of, being involved in, like, the history of photography, making reference and things, there's a great Harry Callahan image of the double exposures of the streets of Chicago, with cars and these sort of things. And I mean, it looks very similar. So, it's kind of looks for like a Harry Callahan reference somewhere. But at the same time, I was kind of thrilled by the feeling of, like, the electric sort of feel that it has. And you think of all the technology that we have and the things that we surround ourselves by, and the kind of feeling that it might give you sometimes if you get a little overwhelmed by it. Her next image, also, this one was titled The Walls We Build. And the first thing I thought of immediately was screens, phone screens, computer screens, all the screens that are in our lives. And, how many screens do we look at a day? How, much are we addicted to this kind of stuff, knowingly or unknowingly? Like, what's our screen time like? And, the cool blue next to the green, the kind of unsettling green that's in the background, certainly was a lot of fun to see, and this, like, movement sort of thing. It also reminded me of riding on the subways in Washington, D.C. when I used to live up in the Baltimore area. You see these sort of patterns go by, really quickly, advertisements and things. So it seemed like a still image of moving subway cars. A lot of fun. No matter what type of wall that we build, I guess, you've got the time that's involved, and it could be a barrier between yourself, against yourself, or a loved one, or a person, or something that you love to do, a hobby. It could be a barrier between you and photography. But it's time that you cannot get back. And so certainly try to keep your opportunities open. I thought the title was very, very appropriate. The Walls We Build. Certainly a kind of scary thing to think of, at least in my perspective, looking at it with the idea of screens. And so thank you to Susan for making me think in those kind of manners. Justice Thomas had this one and a couple of others that I picked, called Brother in Arms. And you look at it, you're gonna see some iconic things right away: the weathered American flag, the tombstone, the money, and then there's some other things that are a little harder to make out. But once you study it, you can see it pretty well. The broken glass and everything, and obviously it's a grave, a memorial for somebody. At the same time, it's a grave that's been loved on for a while. Some of the stuff hasn't changed. And at first you think, like, the American flag deserved better than that, but at the same time it shows kind of a test of time to it. And seeing the weathering away of it, and the coins kind of layered on top of it, it made me think about the 13 colonies and our financial dependency of the country. And you've got this wonderful sort of worn down flag with tarnished coins, the faces of presidents and government buildings that are sort of just laying out there in the sun, next to this tombstone. And you can't make out the tombstone all the way. You do see where it looks like it says U.S. Marine with some of the dates. And so hopefully, you can maybe use an image like this, or think of an image like this as a reference, maybe, that hopefully the ones that served are well taken care of. Because we have a lot to be thankful for a lot of people that are out there. And a lot of people aren't taken care of. And so it's a great sort of memorial image for those kind of things that hits home for me very well. The second one from Justice was this one titled Brush, Fire, Burn. And it made me think of death and rebirth, right? And obviously you've got the trees and the ground and everything, they're still standing, but have been on fire. And if it was controlled or an accidental burn, we don't know, but it's a cleaning and a fresh start. This wonderful sort of open sky with a few sort of clouds. I interpreted it almost as the tree sort of budding the clouds, like, it's like being able to sort of grow sort of the water and the repetition of the things that it needs to keep it up and going. But it really made me think about how long it takes for trees to grow and to be nurtured and to sort of establish root and everything, and how quickly that can go away. It doesn't take long for what we have to be completely gone. And it's kind of scary to think about. So history does repeat itself, and so does life. And so it's kind of a neat sort of moment in that kind of area. Let's go to the next one. Let me move that. Also from Justice Thomas was headlights at 2 a.m. And not a very long exposure, but there are some streaks in the sky. You know, it could be from small aircraft or something like this. If it really is 2 a.m., which I believe, who knows what it could be, but there's a few sort of lines in the sky, but most of the stars are sitting still. And, you know, the headlights at 2 a.m. are the things that we assume are illuminating the tall grass in the foreground, you know, and so it kind of helps open up the shadow areas a little bit. And it's you know, just seeing the title immediately makes you think, use what you got. You know, it's like, I don't have a lot of lighting gear. Let me use the car headlights and I can make this work. This great sort of outer space image that, or image, you know, looking up into the heavens to be able to look back at and keep your curiosity and your wonder growing. The wonder of the nighttime sky. Adventure always awaits, and you certainly try to keep that up and going. So I appreciated kind of seeing that. Sometimes it's a hard thing to capture and to make work. You know, obviously you need some sort of stability for the camera, and a tripod does the trick, but you don't always have those things. And how do you make it work, you know, otherwise? So it keeps our curiosity open and you know, up and going. And then our fourth one, there we go, from Justice, was titled "Until Next Year." And, you know, as the title suggests, you know, kind of almost like the traditional sayings, see you until next year, sort of thing. A road trip out west, it looks like, you know, maybe some of the other images were made as well. Maybe like the southwestern part of the United States. But where wonderful landscapes, these rolling sort of fields and big wide open skies that seem like they're endless. And you know, that's a wonderful sort of analogy. It's like you have all the space and everything, but then there's this great sort of contrast of what looks like a little proto stand. You know, I could be wrong on that. It could be something else, but you know, it's got the pepper on the side, so it could be some sort of food building of some type. But it's boarded up. You know, it's closed. And if you look a little deeper, you don't see footprints. You don't see tire marks kind of parked up next to it. So it looks like it's been closed for a little while. And you know, until next year, you know, who knows how many years it's already been, sort of thing. And maybe it's somebody's dreams that didn't quite sort of come together. Maybe next year I'll get around to it. Maybe next time we'll get around to it. And so I certainly can relate to that kind of thing, and appreciated seeing that. Hopefully, whoever, you know, started this sort of business and things is able to see it be a lucrative investment for themselves. This one was by Thomas Michael, entitled "After the Market." And at first glance, I thought it was crates full of books. You know, I was looking at it, and then I looked at it a little deeper. And I was like, no, wait a minute. These are just empty like fruit and vegetable crates that are stacked up beautifully. To me, it's an image that you can sort of hear and smell, right? It's like it's at the market, after the market. We don't know, you know, where. Maybe Nashville, maybe Murfreesboro, who knows? But that's kind of irrelevant to this. But it's one of those things that we can always relate to. If you've ever been to any sort of like farmers market, any sort of like, you know, produce market sort of thing, and all the stuff that contains the fruits and vegetables to kind of feed the masses. And you know, the packing crates became this kind of, to me, a little bit of an analogy, like, you know, the containers that we need, and the stacking of them becomes this kind of neat sort of temporal structure to maybe hopefully be reused again. It was neat also to see how the roll-up door that's in the right-hand side kind of echoes the same sort of pattern and shape with the wooden sort of panels that make up the boxes and the crates and things. And I love that there's that little trolley that you pull the stuff around. And maybe it was a busy day and they just tossed all those things to the side. Maybe they're going for the recycle, you know, who knows? But it was a fun sort of thing to see of the soft blonde wood against the hard concrete of the ground. Fun image to kind of look at, the kind of to see through. A lot of fun to see. And then Diane Weir, Dancing in the Dark. This one, you know, the shadows obviously became to me kind of exciting because of how dramatic they are. You can move that, I guess we can see more of it. There we go. But you start to see the shadows and the forms that are repeated. And you know, we saw some images kind of early like this, but you know, it's important to me, so you kind of related to it. But growing up, You know, you got two people. One's young, and another one much older. We don't know how old. That doesn't matter. And with the young the person sort of in the tutu kind of dancing and everything, we have 1 foot off the ground, all the way off the ground. And it made me think of this carefree and dreamlike sort of moment, like, you know, just I've got the whole world ahead of me. I can do anything. And then the older figure, maybe the adult, with at least 1 foot, if not both of them, firmly planted on the ground. And so there was something wonderful, kind of contrasty about that to me. It's fun to see, you know, looking into the light and kind of finding those sort of shadows projecting backwards and everything. But at the same time, there was a great sort of moment of young versus old. Don't lose that sort of spirit of youth, you guys, and always kind of keep an eye of wonder open. We keep scrolling down. There we go. Also by Diane, we're titled "Dancing in the Dark," and you know, late afternoon or early morning, we don't quite know. But you know, I was glad to see that this was by the same person when all the names came through and I was putting them in order. We see the silhouettes of the two figures sort of chatting underneath the tree. And you get the shape of the shadows and everything, and you can kind of see a little bit of a hand gesture and two people sort of intently sort of conversing with one another. And then if you follow along, there's a visual break. You know, the wall separates a little bit, and then there's two other figures. And it looks like they're looking in opposite directions. You know, we're just going by the shadow here, but if you look at it just for even a half second, hopefully you can kind of see that, you know, in studying images. And it was kind of neat to think about, you know, the conversations that we have, you know, how quickly they can sort of, you know, fade away, sort of thing. But also excluding and excluding people as well, you know, sort of people together, people away from each other. You know, we don't know. They could all be in a tight little group, all talking, having a great time, you know, telling the jokes or whatever. And just going by what we see here. But you start seeing these sort of separations against people as well. And the tree is another dividing sort of element to them. So I thought this was a rather compelling image, you know, a lot of stuff to kind of look at and see. And then also with, goes by C. Al Wood, I think, or C. Wood. This one was titled Dancing with an Umbrella. And the framing of this one caught my eye immediately, you know, thinking that you're trying something with the cropping, but also with the dark edges, right? You see like the kind of the figure on the right, the figure on the left, and then you see this little girl in the middle carrying a cyan or aquamarine umbrella. And I don't know if you can see it, but the umbrella's got a pattern of swans or flamingos maybe, and they're where their necks are together, it makes a little heart, you know, so this kind of cool pattern that starts to form. And a great reference of youth, because you've got this big umbrella that's protecting the little girl, right? And beyond raindrops, you can see some raindrops falling in the image. And it's always kind of an interesting thing to think about, like what we want to protect our children from, you know, protect kids from, protect, you know, friends from as well. And so I thought that image kind of worked out that way, that she's out in the rain, but we could put some other stuff around it. And I don't know if you can see it, but the guy that's walking away from us, you know, you can see his backside. He's got a clipboard with paperwork over his head to protect himself from the rain. And I thought that was pretty funny with the idea of like the little girl protecting herself with a whimsical, fun umbrella. But then you have this other guy that's protecting himself with like his tax paperwork documents or car loan ownership documents on a clipboard. So it was kind of a fun sort of visual contrast to see. Who needs an umbrella? I'll just use my clipboard. This one made me think about that dancer image that we saw earlier as well, because they had on a kind of blue dress, a blue umbrella, with the red shoes, and hers are a bit more pink. So it's kind of neat to see similarities between you know, a lot of the work that's there. And then also by C. Al Wood is this one titled Wishing for a Chance. And move that over there. I was glad to see that both of these are by the same person, you know, because there was fun sort of ways of working and looking at people around us. And the two images do work nicely together. They're different composition, different formats, and different size. But this guy, you know, looking out, looking inside of a window, and obviously he's got a guitar in his hand held together with a rope and everything, and looking at the person sitting at the drums, and you can almost assume that there's a band playing, and how you know, hopefully, as the title implies, to get his own chance. It looks like the palette of the image has been kind of muted down as well to give it kind of a sad or a little bit more sort of calm sort of feel. I'm not sure, maybe the buildings are super bright yellow and that's been amplified or so. It's neat to see like the line of the neck of the guitar and the rope coming around his shoulder kind of points to the open window where he wants to go, go inside this sort of space. And it's a sad image, but at the same time, very, very hopeful. Maybe one day he'll get his chance. And it made me think about, photography as well, and always looking for the next opportunity and looking into a world that's always right in front of you. You can have the camera in front of you and always look around in front of you. And it's a very, very important thing to always try to look around and see what's there. You should always take a chance and take the opportunity if you're ever given. And hopefully this gentleman's able to sort of do that at some point in his life, rather than just playing on the street and having, hopefully his bag full of donations for some of the performances that he has. It was kind of fun to also see the yellow of the building kind of echoed into the yellow of his plastic sack that he's holding on to. A lot of fun things that start to happen within a very sad image. And that's the 40 of them. Go ahead and stop the share here. There we go. And there we go. And, once again, I was thrilled to be able to go through all the images and kind of look through them. Certainly neat to see, what people are thinking about and working with. And I guess I just want to say thank you again for letting me have that opportunity and to make the selections for it. I had a ball with it. I really did.
Well, it's really fascinating to hear all the different things that you saw in the images and what you felt, they conveyed. It was excellent.
Oh, good.
Very observant. I mean, there were things that I hadn't noticed, and I was looking at the images all the time, it felt like. So anyway.
Oh, well, we are visual people, and it's good to be able to, really look at these kind of things. And, you can look at the same photograph many different times and still miss something. And you think, how did I miss that? Even when you're photographing, you look at the scene in front of you and then you get the image back, you look at it on your computer screen, or if you're in the darkroom, and it's just like, oh my gosh, I never noticed that was there. How did I miss all that? It's always fun surprise and a fun sort of gift to be able to kind of see when you find those kind of elements in an image. Well,
we really appreciate the time you took to review them and tell us what you saw in them, and to it helps us see our work in a different way, and it helps us see each other's work in a different way too. So it's really cool.
That's great. We're happy to do it. I'm always happy to look at work and talk about it.
Yeah, I really also appreciated the depth of your observation and the way you took it from the physical to the to the more interior and kind of really life sort of thing. So thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Anybody have any questions for Jonathan? Looks like you might be getting by without questions.
Oh, no.
Well, yeah, will you come back sometime? This is
Oh,
great.
sure, happy to.
Really appreciate the humanistic context that you placed all what you observed in, and I agree with the earlier comment, very astute observations, and it was wonderful to hear about it. Thank you.
Very well. Yeah.
What kind of work do you shoot, Jonathan? I'll ask you that question.
Okay. Well,
What do you like?
oh gosh, I mean, I do about anything, I guess, but with teaching, I try to keep up with a lot of different types, a lot of different mediums. So if students come with questions, I can try to answer it. For a medium, you got to shoot with digital, but at the same time, love working with film, and try to have a variety of different sort of approaches to this. My own personal work started when I was in grad school, and it has evolved from there. But the work of camera hacking and slit shutter photography, where it's taking a camera apart and recording the world in a slightly different manner, and it explores the fourth dimension of time in photography. I'm a big fan of a straightforward documentary. I'll do portraiture sometimes. Love photographing at state fairs and at amusement parks and these kind of things. But the slit shutter photography has always been a passion of mine. And that grew out of trying to work with almost like a montage style photography of stitching images together. Kind of like early panoramics or working like in a David Hockney-esque kind of manner. And then started researching history of photography, and you acquire one broken camera, you acquire another broken camera, and you realize you don't have anything to lose if you take this apart and you hit the point of no return. So let's build it back in a different way, and then see what possibilities might await you there.
Fascinating.
Hey, one more time, what are the dates on Tamara Reynolds?
Oh yeah, got it right here. So for those that maybe joined a little bit after we got started, I mentioned at the very beginning at the Baldwin Photographic Gallery at MTSU, Tamara Reynolds' work, The Drake, will be on display. It's not up just yet, but it's officially opens Thursday, February the 2nd, and it goes until Saturday, March the 4th. And there's a panel discussion on Tuesday, February 21st at 6 p.m. and then a gallery reception in the Baldwin Photographic Gallery to follow. If you've never been to the gallery, it's in the Bragg building on campus, and easy to find, maybe not the easiest to park at, but certainly can find it if you just looked it up on the map. And that's free and open to the public any day of the week. So if you can't make it that night for the reception, you guys, anybody's welcome, Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 4:30, I believe. It's come down and spend some time with it. Yeah, great space. Yeah, of course. It's I know there'll be posters printed up. I think they're in the printing process right now. But certainly you get a free poster when you visit. But if you look at the Baldwin Gallery webpage, you can find all the dates for upcoming shows as well, and previous shows if you're interested. Yeah.
Thank you. Good seeing you again, Jonathan. It's
It's
been a while.
great to see you, and it has been. It's been a very long time. Fellow MTSU alumni and some others in the room from MTSU as well, which is great to see. Homecoming.
Yeah.
A little fun.
Jonathan, I met you a long time ago. It was at the Trust the Story
Yes, I remember.
exhibit. I was in that one. And so it's been great to see you again.
Yes, wonderful to see you again as well. I saw that poster not too long ago, and I was thinking back on that show. It was a good one at the gallery. Mr. Shannon Randall put together a great
He
show, and a
did.
great opportunity for everybody.
He did.
Fantastic curator for the Baldwin Gallery. We have a lot to be thankful for that.
I want to just add that this, everybody, I agree that Jonathan, you have given us your heart and soul here, as well as some wonderful professional language. And that's very, very helpful. And I just love seeing everybody's photo at this, I love seeing each one for a good period of time while you were talking. It's very different than seeing it online. And I honestly, seeing it in person, because we seem to just, be caught up in conversations when we're at a gallery. So this was a marvelous, you made some wonderful selections, and we can't thank you enough.
Thank you. I mean, once again, I'm thrilled to be here. I'm glad it finally worked out. I was asked in the past, but I couldn't do it because I had so many other commitments at MTSU and things. Always happy to try to help out and be a part of the conversation. And for me, getting to look at the work and hear some of the things that people are kind of saying now. I hope some of the things that I've mentioned are helpful to you. And you're going to pick up in our short time together. But at the same time, it helps me out. I get to look at work and I get to sort of try to make heads and tails of it, kind of decipher what the person. I've only met a handful of you guys, and I've never seen any of the work before until I went through the submission process. So thank you for giving me the chance to hone my craft and skills and the ability to try to be more fluent in the world of photography. It's a great medium.
Yeah.
I'd add that seeing our exhibit through your eyes made me feel that we really had a strong show. I mean, it just collectively, it really worked, and thanks for that view. It's like, hey, guys, made me feel proud to be a part of you guys.
Well, very welcome. Thank you. Yeah. It was a good collection. I mean, all the submissions, I enjoyed looking at, went through them a couple of times and everything. And went back through it and looked at it again and again. So it was great to see what you guys are up to. Good group. It's good to have that kind of community and that kind of following for one another and the support for each other as well.
Somebody had asked in the chat, do we have any info on the number of people who attended the show? Does anybody I went to the reception for like 10 minutes on my way to choir, so I didn't really get to see. I just tried to be there. So I didn't know if we knew any numbers on that. And then I know one sale was made. I don't know if that person's aware of it.
That's great.
Diane sold Dancing in the Dark. Yeah.
Oh,
But that's the only red dot I saw, but, when I picked up work, but that doesn't mean it was the only one. So I don't know.
I didn't know what red dots meant, which actually got complicated because I took it home.
Oh, okay. I was wondering. But congratulations. That's wonderful. And it was
Thank
a
you.
wonderful image.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Oh, I want to know where your accent's from, Jonathan.
Oh my
I hear
God.
a little creeping in every once in a while on certain words of an accent that sounds, I can't quite tell. It's
yeah.
not Boston and it's not New York.
I have a feeling it happened when I moved up north and then picked up on it and never
There's
got
just a
rid of
few
it.
words that come through and I was
Yeah.
going, where's that accent from?
From Chattanooga originally, but had family
Oh.
down in Georgia and
Uh-huh.
family up north as well. So maybe a mixture of two, but I lived up in Baltimore for about 8 years and that's
Probably what it is.
a quarter or so of my life. So
Yeah.
it
Yeah,
Hey,
certain words creep in,
Yeah.
on you. I was about to say, it's like you'd sound Southern, and then there'd just be this little nuance there. And I was going, where is that from?
I appreciate that. Oh,
Y'all show our background one way or another, don't we?
oh,
Well, thank you again, Jonathan.
yeah.
If there's no
course.
more questions, I think we may just end this real quick. I'm gonna go ahead and cut off the,
And thanks for recording, Carl, too.
yeah.
Yes.
Questions about
As he was going through images, I